13 years ago, Phil Mickelson stood at the Scottish Open and finally figured out the secret to links golf. The week changed his career forever. The next Sunday, he lifted the Claret Jug at Muirfield. Now, with the 2026 Open Championship at Royal Birkdale just days away, that same lesson has become a cautionary tale. Because one of golf's biggest names has decided to sit out the Scottish Open entirely, and the golf world is stunned by what it means. Bryson DeChambeau is not in the field at the Renaissance Club this week. While Scottie Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Jon Rahm, and a star-studded field battle the Scottish wind, DeChambeau is absent. No competitive reps, no links practice, no preparation for the season's final major. Meanwhile, Phil Mickelson's 2013 triumph is being remembered as the ultimate proof that you can't just show up at the Open and expect to win. You have to earn it. You have to adapt. And Bryson's decision to skip the Scottish Open is being called a huge error by golf analysts. What did Phil Mickelson learn at the Scottish Open that Bryson DeChambeau is about to learn the hard way? And is DeChambeau's decision the biggest mistake of his career? Welcome to GOLFIO. Today we're breaking down the links lesson that could change everything and why Bryson DeChambeau's choice has the golf world talking. For most of his career, Phil Mickelson was the most talented player in the world who couldn't win the Open. He had the flair. He had the creativity. But links golf? It was his kryptonite. Mickelson grew up on lush, pristine American courses. His game was built in the air, high-flying lob shots, towering iron approaches, and spin that would bite into receptive greens. But on the firm, windswept fairways of a links course, that game didn't work. The ball would bounce. The wind would catch it. The spin would make it impossible to hold the green. It took me a while to learn how to get the ball on the ground without spin, Mickelson admitted. That was a real challenge because I played through the air, hitting lob shots and spinning the ball a lot growing up. The turning point came in 2013. Mickelson headed to the Scottish Open at Castle Stewart, determined to master the links conditions that had given him so much trouble. He worked on keeping the ball low, reducing spin, and letting the ground do the work. He embraced the misery of the Scottish weather, learning to love the cold, wet, windy conditions that had once seemed unbearable. The result was immediate. He won the Scottish Open for the first time in his career. He took that confidence and that feel into Muirfield the following week. And on Sunday, he shot a final round 66 to win the Claret Jug, the one major that had always eluded him. The lesson was clear. You can't just show up at the Open and figure it out. You have to prepare. You have to adapt. And the Scottish Open is the perfect place to do it. Now, fast forward to 2026. The Genesis Scottish Open at the Renaissance Club is underway with a star-studded field. World number 1 Scottie Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Jon Rahm, and other top players are battling the Scottish wind to prepare for the Open Championship at Royal Birkdale next week. But one name is conspicuously absent: Bryson DeChambeau. DeChambeau is not in the field. And the reason is simple. He's not a member of the DP World Tour. The Scottish Open is co-sanctioned by the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour, meaning players need DP World Tour membership to compete in the co-sanctioned event without a sponsor exemption. DeChambeau never worked towards earning that membership, and now he's paying the price. But it's not just about membership. DeChambeau has openly admitted he's considering a future where he doesn't play competitive golf between the majors. His YouTube channel has become a massive success, over 2.7 million subscribers. He's been testing prototype drivers, creating content, and building a brand that exists entirely outside the traditional golf ecosystem. I think, from my perspective, I'd love to grow my YouTube channel 3 times, maybe even more, DeChambeau said recently. I'd love to play tournaments that want me. The Scottish Open is exactly the kind of tournament that wants him. But he chose not to play, and the golf world is stunned. The decision to skip the Scottish Open isn't just about missing a tournament. It's about missing the most valuable preparation week of the year, especially for a player who has historically struggled on links courses. DeChambeau's game has never suited the Open. His power-based style, his high launch, his spin-heavy approach, none of it works well on the firm, windy, seaside courses that define the British Major. And his performance at Shinnecock Hills, where he missed the cut at the U.S. Open, suggests that this year is unlikely to be different. Phil Mickelson's 2013 run is the perfect counterexample. Mickelson used the Scottish Open to adapt to the conditions that had given him so much trouble. He learned how to keep the ball low, how to reduce spin, how to let the ground do the work. He took that experience into Muirfield and won the Claret Jug. DeChambeau is doing the opposite. He's skipping the practice week entirely. He's not playing any competitive golf between the U.S. Open and the Open, and he's banking on his natural talent to carry him through. This has been a brilliant test run for DeChambeau, one analysis noted. He's not playing competitively between the U.S. Open and the Open Championship, so we'll see just how well he can perform at Royal Birkdale without any competitive practice. The analysts aren't optimistic. If he performs poorly, then it's a bad sign for DeChambeau, a sign that if he truly wants to compete at the biggest events of the year, he needs to take his competitive reps more seriously. DeChambeau's decision to skip the Scottish Open isn't just about this week. It's about the future of his entire career. LIV Golf's future is in serious doubt. Saudi Arabia's public investment fund has confirmed it will withdraw its funding after the 2026 season. The league is reportedly losing around $75 million per month. And DeChambeau, like all LIV players, is facing an uncertain future. If LIV collapses, DeChambeau's path back to the PGA Tour is not guaranteed. The Tour has offered a returning member program to some LIV players, but DeChambeau was one of the architects of the antitrust lawsuit against the Tour. He burned bridges that others didn't. And if he wants to play in Europe on the DP World Tour, he would need membership. He hasn't earned it. He hasn't even tried. With LIV's future in serious doubt, ignoring the DP World Tour may prove a fatal error for DeChambeau as he decides where to play golf next year, one analysis warned. Especially when he could have learned from what Phil Mickelson did at the Scottish Open in 2013. The contrast with Jon Rahm is striking. Rahm recently paid a reported $4.7 million to settle his dispute with the DP World Tour, securing his Ryder Cup future and his ability to play in European events. DeChambeau has done nothing. While DeChambeau sits at home, the Scottish Open field is stacked. Scheffler and McIlroy headline a group that include Jon Rahm, Wyndham Clark, Matt Fitzpatrick, Tommy Fleetwood, and home favorite Robert McIntyre. The tournament is a vital warm-up for the Open Championship at Royal Birkdale next week. Players are using the week to adapt to the links conditions, the firm turf, the unpredictable wind, the bump and run shots that are essential for success at the Open. And DeChambeau is missing all of it. The irony is that DeChambeau could have played. The Scottish Open is co-sanctioned, meaning LIV players with DP World Tour membership are eligible. Jon Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton are both in the field. DeChambeau could have applied for membership. He could have secured a sponsor exemption. He did neither. Instead, he's missing the most valuable practice week of the season. And the golf world is left to wonder, is Bryson DeChambeau about to learn the lesson that Phil Mickelson learned 13 years ago, the hard way? Phil Mickelson spent nearly 2 decades failing at the Open because he refused to adapt. He kept playing his high-flying, spin-heavy game on courses that demanded the opposite, and he kept failing. Then, in 2013, he changed. He went to the Scottish Open, embraced the conditions, and learned how to win on links turf. The next week, he won the Claret Jug. Bryson DeChambeau is making the same mistake Mickelson made for 20 years. He's skipping the Scottish Open. He's skipping the practice week. He's hoping his natural talent will be enough to win the Open. The analysts are clear. DeChambeau has experienced similar struggles at the Open. His game has never suited links golf. And this year, he's doing nothing to change that. The question that keeps me up at night is whether DeChambeau is about to learn the hardest lesson of his career. Whether the Open Championship at Royal Birkdale will be the moment he realizes that talent alone isn't enough. Phil Mickelson's Scottish Open lesson is suddenly back in the spotlight, and Bryson DeChambeau is about to learn it the hard way.